Well, in case you didn't hear, and it's been kept fairly well quiet the last couple of days, Richmond won the 2017 Premiership. I know there's been a lid on it. There's been not a lot of media, but it is our solemn duty to tell you that is exactly what happened, despite what we predicted last week. Welcome once again to the grand final review, Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here he is, narrowly pipped for the Norm Smith, Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, it was a great weekend. I've got to say, I'm feeling it a bit. I'm really feeling it today.
I'll tell you what, it's a Monday that you feel like you actually played the game.
Yeah.
The body's sore, the head's sore, just feel confused about everything.
It is weird. So I should start by saying, well done to Richmond Football Club.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
The thing about it, I find really funny since they won. And we'll go into the game in the day a bit more. But the thing that's it's been led by a few, but it's kind of been written in a few things. And Grant Thomas was happy Grant.
Grant's got about 14 children. I reckon they all moved out by the time they were 6. just got to get away from him.
I got to say, people accuse me of being negative. Compared to Grant, I'm Pollyanna.
If he won Powerball, he'd be going, only 50 mil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next week it could have been 70.
Only got all the numbers. Yeah. Anyway, he said that this is the worst side ever to win a premiership. And I thought, did he have the best ever side to list to not win a premiership?
Yeah, well, it's a hard thing to be criticising premiership teams when you've coached a couple of losing grand final teams.
Well, did he get to a losing grand final?
Oh, no, he didn't.
Ross Lyon
It was Ross Lyon.
He couldn't even get that team, which was very talented.
Yeah.
But the thing it sort of takes away a lot from Richmond, the idea that this is a terrible list. I mean,
you reckon they care?
I don't think Tigers fans care at all.
No.
But I don't think they care that much, but it is irritating when people make out it's a bit like the Bulldogs last year. Everyone makes out they fluked it.
Yeah.
When really they had some huge victories to get there. You don't just fluke that. Then Richmond let's be very clear, I've been the biggest non-believer in Richmond. So this isn't me turning around and pretending I've been on Team Richmond all the time. But I equate it to there are scientific theories where you believe in a theory, but then the way science works is then it gets tested and evidence accumulates that proves that your belief is wrong, and you have to at some point have the thing to go, to some point go, I was wrong about all that. Yeah. And I'm fully like that on this Richmond side. Yeah. I just never thought they'd get this far, and I didn't think they'd win on the weekend, but they've proven everyone wrong. And they proved it everyone wrong, but the idea that a terrible list is, they've got a pretty decent list. I mean, they've got 2 Brownlow medalists.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like it's a complete rubbish. This idea.
You got the captain of the All-Australian side.
Yeah, the idea they got. That's right. They got Alex Rance,
Coleman medalist Jack Rewald.
Yeah, the idea that this is just like this, and they got. Prestia and Caddy and other players in that were decent players to be, so the idea that this is just this rubbish list is first nonsense. Yeah. It's not true. But secondly, AFL, the thing, we've said this many times before on this show, it's the thing that gets always lost in the coverage, is AFL isn't the NBA, it's a team sport. Yep. 18 players on the ground at once all have to be playing at a high level for you to win.
To contribute.
You could drop Dangerfield into like they have in Geelong, but you could drop Dangerfield and move him to the Gold Coast tomorrow. Yeah. Gold Coast would be a better side, but they're not going to win a premiership straight away.
Gary Ablett, perfect prime example.
And that's what's great about it. And the thing that people don't get is the list is only as good as they all coordinate and play together, and that's why you can't say this is a terrible list because. They all played their role and got over egos, and they did what the purpose of the bloody sport is. And people come out and say, "Oh, terrible list." It's like rubbish.
Yeah. Well, look, I agree with you totally.
They smashed every contender this year in the finals.
I agree with you. I mean, and this again, this is your science theory that when the facts are presented to you, you sometimes have to backtrack. My theory last week is the reason I tipped Adelaide is that I tend to think that. Nearly in every grand final, there's 2 or 3 players who don't fire a shot. And they're generally in your bottom 6. Yeah. The ones who have been good contributors over the season, but on the big stage for whatever reason they have a bad one. And I thought that's more likely to happen to Richmond's bottom six, and that was completely wrong. They all, as you say, did their job, and the three that didn't fire a shot were Adelaide's big guns. So they were on the back foot from the start. And the Tigers, as you say, it's become a bit of a cliche in the last few years that every player has a job to do and play a role. But it's absolutely true, and they proved it on Saturday. Every single bloke out there, at whatever time, they weren't all best on ground, but whenever the question was asked, they delivered. And so they were very worthy recipients of the cup, I reckon. So
how did your day start? Apart from a beer, how did it start?
As we've said many times, that's one of the great things about grand final day. You can. Well, I had to.
You're drinking in the shower. You haven't even got dressed yet. There's nothing better than a beer in the shower.
Yeah,
I've often said that.
Yeah, I have a little special stubby holder attached to the shower wall, so in case hot water splashes on it. But no, I had to go and do a breakfast with Dave Hughes and Denise Scott, and that was a ripping morning. And again, you walk into these things at 8 a.m. and you're surrounded by 200 people, all with beers in their hands. You know, it's going to be a day. Isn't it going to be a good day? So that was my morning. Did that, went home and just had a couple of mates around. And again, we hit the beers fairly hard, and we all agreed at half time that, while they were only 9 points in front, that the Tigers, the game was there for them to lose, and they just didn't look like they were going to. There was no way they were going to lose that game.
Well, it was.
What about your day? You had a bigger day than me.
Well, I was at the North Melbourne Grand Final breakfast thing. I had to speak at that in a debate, so that was good. That was good fun. And then I had two other commitments I had to go do, and then wandering down. So my final gig was at lunchtime before the game. Was at the I think it used to be the Hilton, the Pullman now it's called, across the road from the MCG.
Up on the hill.
And so I'm wandering down, and there's just Richmond supporters and Adelaide supporters everywhere. Yeah. Of course, you can't tell them apart because the jumpers clash so much.
Exactly.
And so I just...
None of the supporters were wearing their clash outfits. Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah. So, and I kept having people come up to me because I had the hat on.
Yeah.
So people were coming up and talking to me, and talked to a bunch of Adelaide fans, and they said to me, I said, "Oh, you're nervous?" And they said, "We're really nervous because everyone thinks we're going to win."
Yeah.
And we're worried, we could, players could get a bit ahead of themselves, and they're not mentally right, and you have a few go missing. And I said, "Oh, don't worry, there's no chance of that happening."
Again, on the money, as we always are.
Just and then I'm talking to a bunch of Richmond supporters, and they're just like, they got that nervous, twitchy energy of ice addicts, which I don't think they were. I think they were just
hanging out for a fix.
They were just beside themselves, crazily kind of worried and upset. And, they were sort of in good spirits at the same time, but because I was a bit worried that the Tigers fans had done all their celebrating during the week. Yeah. Because they'd been up.
Good go at it, yeah.
They'd been up for a while. And then I got into the ground, and the retirement lap's happening and everything, and that was good. And I'm sitting next to this lady, and she was she would have been late 60s.
Yeah.
And she was a Richmond supporter, and she was sober, and she was nice. And I was like, well, this is a bit weird. And
you obviously weren't in the outer. You're obviously in pretty good seats.
No, it was just, it wasn't it wasn't VIP seating or anything, but it was. And so I'm chatting to her, and she just managed to get the ticket that morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and I said, "Oh, is it hard to get grand final tickets?"
That would have gone down.
Yeah. Then I got belt pelted. No. And I said, "Oh, so someone had fallen over, in terms of couldn't come, and they were a neutral supporter, but somehow they'd found her through friends."
And she's a lifetime Richmond.
Yeah, she's been to their last few premierships.
Oh, right.
So she goes hardcore. She was teary, and she was lovely, but you could tell she'd looked like she'd played the premiership, and we weren't even through the retirement lap. This isn't after the game.
This is about 1:30.
Yeah, it is about 1:30. And I said to her, "Just breathe. It's a long.
Yeah, it's a long day.
It's a long day." So,
how was she by the halfway through the game? End of the game.
Yeah, the whole game, I felt like I was riding the waves with her. And they had some Adelaide supporters behind me, and they were in good cheer. They were drinking Chardonnay.
All right.
Like to just fill the stereotype. And the Chardonnays at the MCG are like shots. They charge you like about $40, and it's the tiniest serving of wine. So those guys must have spent
a clean skin a day.
Yeah, they must have spent 10 grand before, like on wine before
more than on their tickets.
Yeah, like the Adelaide economy got spent on wine at this thing.
Oh, fantastic.
So they were in good spirits too. Although it's hard to understand them over their accents, of course. But no, they were in good. So everyone was in a pretty good mood, but you could feel how tense. It was the most packed I've ever seen the MCG. Yeah. Even more packed than like a Melbourne game.
Yeah. Like, Melbourne versus Freo.
Remember that game? Right up there with that. No, it was over 100,000 there. It was absolutely like you could not move, and the noise was just amazing.
How did it compare to the week before? Because the week before the preliminary,
it was much louder. Really loud.
Yeah, well, I tell you, on the morning of our breakfast, I ran into a guy I know. He's a former board member at Richmond, and he's quite a bit older than us. And he lives in Perth now, and he was there with his wife. And I said, how you feel? Lordy, you must be a bit twitchy. And he said, we flew over here before the finals. We said, look, hopefully we'll see them win a final. We'll stay here until they lose.
Yeah.
So he said, we're still here.
Living here.
And he said, and if they win, I don't know when we're going back.
Yeah.
He's
still around.
He'll be in a hotel room somewhere.
I only just realised on the day of the grand final that morning, someone mentioned that it was going to be daylight saving the next day.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
This seems very early daylight savings this year, and then I realised it was just because Richmond is still around. And my brain thinks it's August.
It's still the last year.
Yeah, when you see Richmond still playing, normally
it's still October the next day.
Yeah, you normally think it's August, so you kind of so that kind of takes. So anyway, then the Killers came on.
Yeah,
and about
how did they sound in the ground? They sounded great on the telly.
About halfway through the first song.
Yeah.
I started to think these guys aren't a train wreck. Like I like the Killers. I've seen them live a couple of times, so I'm not, but it sounded good. That everyone was into it, and then by the time they even got away with playing one of their new songs, which isn't usually. But then by the time they got to playing the Midnight Oil,
they did a good job on that.
Forgotten Years. That was like they had the crowd already fairly behind them. It sounded good. Everyone realised it wasn't a train wreck. Yeah. But then that got the whole joint like it was pumping. Rocking. And then when Mr. Brightside came on, the whole stadium was like being at a Killers concert, not at a grand final. Because normally at a grand final, people
it's not loud enough, and
they're just disinterested.
Cares.
Like, and they had Sting last year, who was perfectly beige. He didn't,
bland.
but no one. It was like background. It was like background music. But the whole stadium, people dancing.
They needed it for years.
The stadium where I was, you could feel it moving. Yeah. People were dancing and clapping and singing to Mr. Brightside. And Mr. Brightside's like the perfect sing along.
It's good.
You need to sing along. It's an arena band does an arena. Like makes sort of sense. So I was a bit disappointed in the AFL ruining another great tradition.
I was about to say that's the worst part about that is that we have to begrudgingly acknowledge that the AFL got it right.
Oh, they got it more than right. I mean, the mood just off the back of that was everyone was so in a good mood and so amped. And then they did break. Then they did Up There Gazali. Yeah. And everyone got into that too because it was just one song. It's a sing-along song. Everyone was into it.
2.5 minutes, yeah.
Then the teams came out, and even that was good. They had the drummers for Richmond. Weirdly, they didn't have the song play until they had already had their photo taken and were like, it was weird. It came on very late, the song. I don't know if there was a problem, but that was fine. We got to hear it 1,000 times later on in the day. And then Adelaide came out to the flame throwers.
Yes.
Which I thought was good for them, for their gimmick to not be electricity-based but gas-based. A lot more sense.
There was no chance of there being a blackout.
Yeah, that's right. So that was kind of good. And so by the time it got to the first bounce, the whole
joint was pumped.
Yeah. Like it was really, the AFL put on an incredibly slick show this year, and I'm a bit disappointed I can't find much fault in it, but it was genuinely like and even all the music they had playing, like they played AC/DC Long Way to the Top just over the PA just before the bounce, and the whole crowd was singing, rocking to that. Like, so it wasn't it was all kind of what you needed to get people into it. And so once it started, but then when Adelaide kicked those first 2 goals, and then Betts strolled in and kicked that one, which off the fumble, you were like, you could sense the Richmond fans just go, oh, here we go.
Yeah,
you could just sense it instantly. And then the end of that first quarter where Adelaide were not playing well and were in the lead.
Yeah.
It was just, you just got a sense.
And Jack Rewald kicked like 4 points in a row. And you thought,
it was all playing out. And I was sort of, and I joked all along about fearing for my life of getting out of the G. But at that point, I actually did start to wonder,
how am I going to do this?
How much of a joke was this? Is this actually? But then it just turned, like within moments, like that second quarter. It had been in the first, but it seemed like Adelaide were handling the pressure.
Yeah.
In the second quarter, when you're at the actual game, you could just see there's 2 things that sort of Richmond did that you could sense when you're looking at it, like at the whole ground. They were, one, applying intense pressure, but they were doing it in not a crazy, haphazard, overreaching way. Yeah. They were very structured in how they were setting up around, like if it was in their forward 50.
They were
well drilled. So it wasn't, so sometimes people talk about pressure, and pressure's one thing, but sometimes you see sides go really hard with the pressure and it just leaves loose players everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes you see three players trying to tackle a one thing, the ball spills out to the 2 opposition players aren't involved in the stoppage, and the ball's suddenly 50 metres away. And you go, hang on, you're going to be a bit smarter than that. You know?
So then every time, so that's what Richmond did, probably don't get the credit. The pressure was there, but it wasn't just the pressure, it was the discipline of the application of it. So they just always had a wall built across the ground at any point when Adelaide were trying to switch it didn't work. And then, amazingly, and it was partly the pressure and partly some of the Crows players not playing well. But so, for instance, to get out of their defensive 50, the Crows would try and hit up Tex Walker, and he just never got the mark. No. The Richmond always managed to have 1 or 2 plays on him and got they wouldn't outmark him, but they'd always get the ball to the ground. Yeah. So it just never moved forward. And then the delivery of Adelaide under the pressure, when they did go forward, the amount of times, I wish I had $1 for every, they kicked to a 3-on-1.
Yeah.
And then, it looked like, the Richmond defence got a lot of credit and they deserved it because they were very good, but they were helped a lot by the amount of times the Adelaide midfield would almost just seem to just spot the 3 Tigers on 1 Crow. And then, so there was a bit of criticism of the Crows forward line, but the delivery was so, like watching it live, the delivery
was poor.
Because where I was sitting was sort of in a forward, not quite a forward pocket, but so I could see a bit of forward flank almost. But when it was up our end, you could just see the delivery, and you're going, it was you could be you could have been the best player in the world, and you wouldn't have got much, So it was kind of, so you got this sense, and then it became, are they going to be able to keep this up?
Yeah,
because if Richmond can keep this pressure up, there's no way they're going to lose.
Well, that was our whole thing at halftime. If they can keep this up, they are not going to lose this game. I mean, but Adelaide are going to have to suddenly turn something on here, which they're quite capable of doing. Yeah. But 10 minutes or even 5 minutes into the third quarter, we said, nah, this game's over. Yeah. You watch.
And that was the credit where Richmond, they were just relentless.
Yeah.
And Adelaide just didn't know what to do. They didn't seem to have a plan B, and they just couldn't handle the pressure.
No.
And it was just, and Richmond, to their credit, they never let up. Like when you got a player, like you see sometimes, like Adelaide did a few little things where they reminded everyone of their class, and you thought, right, if they can stick 2 or 3 passages of play like that together, So in that fourth quarter, though, I think I and most of the neutrals, and yourself were probably the same, thought, there's no way Crows are getting back into it.
No.
But the Richmond supporters I was talking to at the game who were sitting next to, the lady next to me, she was saying, I think I'll wait a few more before I get anywhere near kind of feeling.
It's always that hideous. You know it's not logical, but you still think they could kick 8 goals in 10 minutes and win this.
Yeah,
even at the 15th.
Well, then I thought, I don't think they will, because this isn't the Richmond of old. Like this is new. We've crossed into a weird...
It's a new void.
Yeah, it's funny when the teams go, you're like, Geelong, people forget how much Geelong were just a joke forever.
Yeah.
And you never thought they would be good again. And now they're most people would be surprised. Some people who are young would be surprised to think that Geelong were
haven't always been a powerhouse. Yeah.
So, so it does change. But so then the lady next to me, she was in absolute tears.
Yeah.
And she said to me, when the after sun, she said, I'll have to sit next to you next year for good luck too. And I thought, bloody arrogant Richmond supporters. Always assuming a premiership.
Getting ahead of themselves. They win one and they think...
They were actually really good. And all the Crows fans, to their credit, they were shattered, you could just see. But they stayed right to the end.
Yeah.
I know there were probably some idiots in the crowd, but most of the people I saw were, there was a good mix around me and they were all pretty, nice to each other.
Right. And how big was the... I mean, I'm not asking you this. I'm just saying that the celebration afterwards in Richmond, in Swan Street. Did you see some of that footage? On the way here today, I made a conscious decision to drive up Swan Street just to see what was there. And it was pretty much what you'd expect, a couple of upturned cars, some smouldering rubbish, and, shops boarded up. So it was pretty much...
That's just normal on Swan Street. They played the song after the final siren. So before the final siren, after the final siren, but they're setting up the presentation stage and everything, right? So they must have played the theme song 7 or 8 times on repeat, which is what you want if you just won a grand final, right? So that was and the whole crowd, all the Richmond fans, which was the vast majority, singing the Richmond song, and then the yellow and black, just loudest thing I've ever heard at the MCG almost. And they just kept doing that over and over. And there were tears, people hugging each other. There was it was a lot. The Western Bulldogs one was similar. I think this was just slightly larger in terms of the amount of people, but it's just that relief of decades of pent up resentment and torture. Just suddenly and people just were in shock too. And then afterwards, outside the MCG. Yeah, it was a really festival kind of feel, but I did get a real sense that there was a lot of shock, in Richmond fans. They were a few of them said to me, "Can you pinch me? I just can't believe this has actually happened."
I texted a mate who's just a massive idiot Tiger fan. Said congratulations, and he said, "I've just watched the game, I've watched the celebrations, and I'm still not sure that I've accepted the fact that we've won the premiership."
Yeah.
He said, it's the classic hasn't sunk in yet.
Yeah.
So, and he was just watching it at home. So there must have been that similar feeling at the ground amongst a lot of them.
I was talking to a friend who flew over from Singapore to watch it.
Right.
I was talking to him the next day. He went to the game and then went out afterwards and celebrated and did all that. And then at 2 a.m, he went and found a pub where they were showing the replay. And there was a bunch of other Tiger supporters doing the same. Yeah. And he sat down and watched the replay at 2 a.m.
Fantastic.
And he said, because when he was at the game, he can't remember anything about it. He could, he couldn't remember who kicked goals, who played well, because he was so nervous. He said, I was writing everything so much that I had no recollection. So he said, when I watched the replay at 2 a.m, it was like watching it for the first time. And so that was the
Even
impact.
though he couldn't see straight anyway.
He was blind by then, but, and I think he's watched it 8 times since. But,
you would.
That was the impact on people it kind of had. I saw there was a bit of mucking around in Swan Street. Someone was giving out free a barber opened his doors and gave out free Dustin Martin haircuts.
And plenty of women took him up on it. Yeah.
And then someone threw something through the window of the Collingwood Lexus Centre.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, and I thought you can't fault them for that.
Well, I thought, good to see they're still hitting targets even after the game. So there was that. There was a bit of dancing on cars and stuff. It was, look, some of it I know people were saying, this is terrible behaviour, but look, on the scale of things, it wasn't ever, given everyone was making out, including myself, that it was going to be the end of days.
Yeah.
It wasn't that
bad. There was tens of thousands of people in Swan Street. And a
few idiots did, but most of it was just.
I'm actually a bit jealous of it because if let's say Melbourne gets the trifecta of sort of fairy tales next year, if Melbourne were to win it, I just can't see 50,000 Melbourne supporters going on a rampage anywhere. What do we do?
We'll be back we're all going back to the Melbourne club.
Yeah, and just Uber in some cheese platters and some bottles of Sauv Blanc.
I don't know what I'd do if we won. It's the great...
Serious question. Where do we go? I mean, they had the Punt Road Oval. They've got Swan Street. Where do Melbourne supporters go? If we're I've had this conversation
the obvious answer
years.
is Bulla.
Yeah.
Everyone gets in the Range Rovers and drives up. That's... Yeah. Surely there's the private school that will open its doors to us.
Oh, Melbourne Grammar's probably
not far,
the closest.
Yeah, that's probably where we'll do it.
Yeah, there or down at Scotch. Scotch would be a good one because that's just down the road.
Considering how big our supporter base is, we might just have it at my house.
Yeah. It certainly won't be.
Don't worry, mate. It's not something we're ever going to have to worry about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let's not get...
Yeah,
so it was an absolute terrific day. I mean, Grand Final Day is my favourite day of the year by a mile, and it was a really fun day. I mean, I think young people that genuinely, and I do feel very sorry for them having been in that position as the Adelaide fans because, look, losing a grand final's horrible, but we know this especially from 2000 especially and, against the Hawks in the 80s. You just, when your team is not competitive, sitting there and it was like in that third quarter and the Crow supporters, you could just tell they just knew this was over. That is a horrid feeling. I know
funny
that feeling.
About that.
Is the
Saturday
worst.
morning, I was talking to Daniel Ward, who played in Melbourne's 2000 grand final side.
Well, played is it not?
Eh?
Play was in it.
Yeah, he was in it.
None of them played.
Yeah, I said, what was it like? I said, you were the brutal underdogs. Everyone knew Essendon were by far the best side that year. Yeah. And he said, oh no, we were reasonably confident when he went out. He said the worst thing from my point of view, because where I was sitting, I was right down near the fence when Michael Long fixed up Troy Simmons. And Ward, he said, then there was a big melee, and he said, I got fined $3,500 for the melee.
Yeah.
He said, which was more than my match payments because it was only my 20th game. So he said, it cost me money to play in the grand final. And he said, I didn't do much.
And get belted.
Yeah, and he said, at halftime, he said, even though everyone said the right things, we just sort of knew that we're up against it for the whole day.
Yeah.
And he said it's a really awful high feeling. He said, the worst thing was watching the jubilation of the Essendon players, even though they were the favourites and they beat us by 10 goals.
Yeah.
He said that was the worst thing. But
there's nothing worse. I can't imagine it, of course, on the biggest stage. But I remember even playing footy.
Yeah.
And you're getting belted.
Yeah.
And there's still heaps of the game to go.
Yeah.
There is a shocking feeling just in a game that means not a lot. Like you're just playing, your local club.
Yeah.
So to be doing it in front of 100,000 people and it's on TV, it must be the worst, difficult. Especially if you know you're playing terribly.
Yeah. And when you can't get a kick, you try even harder, and sometimes that makes you muck it up.
Yeah.
You know who I do feel for? All those Richmond supporters who've burnt their memberships over the last year or over the years.
I don't think many did this year. They were kind of a bit... Travis Walsh wrote, is Damien Hardwick the Shane Woden of premiership coaches?
The implication there being what, he fluked it or is he not...
Oh, I think so. I
mean, people have unkindly said Shane Woden is probably the worst Brownlow medalist that's ever been. What did turn this around? Because Damien Hardwick is hardly a new coach. So he's been around the block.
But was it also just the right team of assistant coaches got brought in around him? Did it help them losing some of the players like Vickery? You actually had to change your game style to one that worked.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't. See, the thing about Hardwick is I've been on the record of thinking Richmond's commitment to Hardwick was a fool's errand, and that's been proven wrong. But I mean, Hardwick has copped all the blame when they've stuffed up, so he has to get a lot of credit when he goes well. D Keller wrote in, and she's a Richmond supporter. How do I deal with success? It's been 37 years and I'm confused. I think that's the question. A lot of it.
You're not alone there. Yeah.
There's support groups that can help you. Just keep watching the replay. Sarah Matthews wrote in, this is the real question that we're all wrestling with. How do we deal with a world where Richmond is a successful club?
I know. D has the supporters quandary.
Yeah.
We have the non-supporters quandary, which is exactly what Sarah's talking about.
What is this? Because I've said this before. If you're sort of around the age of 40, your whole life has been based on the belief that the Richmond Football Club's sole aim is to torture its supporters. So
it's to tease them and promise the world and then deliver an atlas.
So this is just an ironclad law of the universe has just changed overnight. It just doesn't, and it's all out the window. It's just a different world.
The only thing we can hope for is they crash and burn next year and finish 15th.
But even that doesn't matter.
They've still done it. Yeah, that's true.
They've done it.
Yeah. It's like the Bulldogs. They crashed and burnt this year.
I mean,
you can't take it away from them.
I mean, if they rattle off the next 5 seasons and they're terrible, maybe. But yeah, they've bought themselves some time there. No. Meerkats Cricket wrote in.
Is that his real name?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Is Mrs. Hardwick Damien's actual wife or an Illuminati figurehead that pulls all the strings at Richmond?
Oh, see, Meerkats, like us, loves a good conspiracy theory, obviously.
This was all set up. This confirms my theory that the AFL is really just the WWE.
Yes.
They got script writers.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one thing we should address is there was quite a few Adelaide fans who were furious at the umpiring. And
that's a given.
But I would say, in fairness, to give them, they would have lost no matter what, right?
No.
The way they played yesterday and the way Richmond played. But the umpiring, it is, when you there was some calls in Richmond's favour that you were just they were bewildering. And it is this phenomenon, and I don't know, Aussie rules is not the only sport that suffers from it, which is the dominant crowd, like the home field advantage. Across the Premier League have done this over the last 20 seasons. Someone did all the penalty kicks are all way disproportionately for the home side. Yeah. In West Coast Eagles how one side
they get all the frees.
And if you're a Victorian side playing on the MCG, you do have a slight advantage. Now in this case, I don't think it made any difference to the end result. But the worry is if it's close.
That's when,
you start to say, well, and I don't know how it's not just the AFL; it's human nature. Having a crowd yell at you psychologically, that's why the quicker we get robots to fix all this, the better we'll be. But I didn't think it was quite I didn't think it swung the whole game.
I reckon there were a couple of really dodgy decisions against the Crows.
I think the Swans have more of an argument from the year before.
Yeah, I mean there was that one. Eddie Betts surely should have got a free kick. Right on the goal line there. And there were a couple of others, but generally speaking, you can feel hard done by, but it wouldn't have altered the result.
Not in this game.
And that's all you can hope for, really.
But it is an issue about not just in the season and the grand final, it's the home field advantage with umpires. How do you get umpires to not be swayed by the crowd? Because they obviously are, and it's human, it's not their fault.
Just on Meerkats' question, have you actually seen Mrs. Hardwick? Did she pop up at any of the celebrations, or is she just?
I can't remember.
Dimmer's imaginary friend,
No, I sort of switched. No, I did see her in a few in some of the coverage the next day.
Right.
I sort of switched off pretty quickly once the siren had gone. And by switched off, I mean,
to the bar.
I was at the bar and drinking heavily. Mick wrote in, would Geelong have won the grand final sprint if it was held at Cardinia Park?
Well, he's just echoing your theory about the home field advantage.
Oh, man, it is massive, the home field advantage. And it's why I do laugh when Melbourne clubs get annoyed about the advantages interstate clubs have. Yeah. And you're like, you got a few yourself. Yeah. It's all pretty good for us. Let's just settle down a little.
These things, they even themselves out.
Yeah, look at the big picture here, not individual things. Jared Healy, not Gerald.
But is this the Jared Healy?
No. Oh. It's not, I checked.
Right.
When will the government be releasing their disaster relief package to rebuild Swan Street after it was destroyed on Saturday? I need a fair bit.
It is. I mean, as I said, I was down there this morning. There was some rubbish around. There was a couple of broken windows. You know what was everywhere? Those yellow O-bikes.
Oh, yeah, they're there anyway. These are the new share bikes and they don't have a dock, so they're just left around. Anywhere. And I think an app unlocks them or something if you want to use them and pay to use them.
And Australians being Australians, once they've had their ride, they do the sensible thing, which is throw them in the Yarra. Yeah. But there's plenty around. I mean, if North Korea ever hits us with a missile, hits Melbourne with a missile, the one thing you'll be sure of, if you survive that initial attack, you'll be able to get around and on an O-bike.
There'll be more O-bike somewhere. There's websites dedicated to photographing where they've been put.
Yeah.
And they're on top of bus shells. Yeah, it's crazy. Paul Harding wrote in, have Adelaide broken from their national anthem standoff yet? It's a good
we
point.
We can laugh about that now.
Well, it did sort of. That kind of was how they played.
Yeah. Just
Not moving.
Stood there with their hands on their hips. Yeah.
It was amazing.
I think they might ditch that for next year. It worked for a few finals. Two finals it worked
The thing is, this is like correlation or causation. Did them standing like that help them win any of the games? People, no. They were just better in those other games. Like, it had no correlation to the outcome.
It's like Richmond Clash jumper, all the hoo-ha, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever colour jumper you're wearing is not going to affect your performance on the day.
Yeah.
And the Adelaide Standoff, which it now has an official name, it'll be sponsored next year.
Yeah.
It'll be the Toyota Adelaide Standoff or something, you know?
Well, my thing is, it's the white man's haka.
Okay.
Because the haka, the white men, when they dance, it's a traditional dance of white men just standing on the dance floor, stock still, staring creepily at a woman.
Occasionally moving their arms to K-San.
Well, the only time they change it is K-San's played, they put their arms around each other in a circle and yell the words at each other.
Yeah, or if US Forces comes on, there's always one pissed idiot who tries to dance like Peter Garrett.
So, not sure, but it's a good point, Paul. Jim Woodcock wrote in, how long will their next premiership drought have to be before we can make Richmond jokes again?
Gee, that's a good question, actually.
Well, that is the thing. It has ruined a whole... But it's easy. You just do find, replace Richmond with Melbourne.
Yeah.
And all those ninth jokes work. All those ninth jokes work perfectly. So there's no need to give it up.
No, you just move your allegiance to another crap team like Melbourne.
But that's what I was saying before. Richmond have bought themselves a long
they have.
bit of... And this is the thing. You go from being the laughing stock to you're the best side in the comp. It's
a hard one for
Richmond fans have got a lot of revenge to take out on people, so they should enjoy it because they've copped it forever.
Yeah. Look at the media coverage. We'll have a look. I mean, you didn't see much of Channel 7's thing. Did you see? You probably didn't see.
Yeah, tell us about the coverage because I didn't see any of it.
Well, it was, apart from the fact that there was, and you could say this about any game, there was far too much Cameron Ling. You'd have to say it wasn't too bad.
Really?
Although Bruce McAvaney had a new catchphrase he unleashed early in the first quarter, and that was bubbling ball.
Right.
Have a listen to it. The first quarter, every time it went to the forward line, it's a bubbling ball. He said it 3 or 4 times.
It's better than chaos ball, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't,
I was sitting there with 5 13-year-olds, and they picked it up on it, and it was for the rest of the day bubbling ball. And then in the third quarter, even BT got into the action.
Oh, that's
it's gone to the forward line. It's a bubbling ball. What is that? It's not a bouncing ball. It was bubbling. So that got really annoying. Generally speaking, you'd have to say it wasn't a bad coverage. Although I'm not a big fan of the ads after every goal because I normally watch it on Fox Footy.
Yeah.
But once you got used to that, again, I begrudgingly have to say it wasn't a train wreck by any stretch. The only train wreck came later that night on the ABC, which I saw. I took a screenshot. They put a thing up saying AFL News, a little pull through. It said, Richmond's Dustin Hoffman wins the Norm Smith. And that's what I thought he played well, but I thought he was better. Did you put
that up on Twitter?
Yeah, I thought he played well, but I thought he was better in Rain Man. You know?
Did you put that up though? Yeah. Oh, that's great. I have to go dig that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman won the Norm Smith. It's not bad. He's about 75 now.
He's got amazing range.
Oh,
he can even pretend to
he can do anything. He can pretend to be 6'3" when he's 5'3".
The amazing thing about the Norm Smith, there's a couple of things with the Norm Smith. At the ground, James Hird got a big boo.
Did he?
Yeah.
Actually, just on the coverage, when he came up to get that, I made sure everyone's quiet. I wanted to hear, I don't know whether 7 deliberately dropped the crowd mics. You couldn't really tell whether he got booed or
there was some clapping and there was a fair bit of booing.
Right.
But it stopped really quickly because people were in a celebratory mood.
Yeah.
So it was like they booed because they felt like they wanted to acknowledge they didn't think it was great.
And
it wasn't everyone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, but there was a fair bit of booing. You could hear it, but it dropped off really quickly just because everyone was like
He just walked up, announced it, gave the medal to Dusty.
I mean, it's normally not a big role. You wouldn't even notice half the time who presents it. So it was only just so that was sort of.
Did you feel that Dusty was the right man?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about because I kind of laughed because as the night wore on and the beers were flowing, a few people I was chatting to and a few Richmond supporters are saying to me, "Oh, yeah, I really thought Basher should have won the Norm Smith," and I said to them, "Just stop for a sec. How good a problem is this for you to have?
Yeah.
Of all the problems you've had as a footy fan, to feel a little bit like arguing about, well,
Basher got robbed.
Should Basher or should have Dusty? Yeah. And they were going, I can see why they went for Dusty. It was either, and I'm like, and then they're going, but then it could have been Rance, and I'm like, mate,
relax. Yeah.
The Crow supporters would kill to be having this argument.
Yeah.
Should it have been Rory or Eddie Betts?
This is your biggest problem tonight. Yeah.
It doesn't matter who got the Norm Smith. No. I thought Dusty. Look, Basher was fantastic.
Yeah.
Played the game of his life. Let's be honest. No one thought Basher. You've never seen him play that well.
No, he was fantastic. He was our tip till three-quarter time.
Rance was huge, but I thought Dusty's emergence, he wasn't that busy, didn't do a lot in the first quarter, but they're really getting on top, really seemed to click when Dustin started to lift.
Second quarter, he got caught a couple of times.
Yeah, but then he got and then you could see, and this is the thing about Dustin Martin when you watch him live especially, is he creates so much chaos around wherever he is because you can't just put one guy and hope they'll tackle him because he'll always brush him off and he just bursts through, and so he means that half the players suddenly have to go to him to try and just stop him.
Exactly
and that means all these Richmond players just run forward and are just loose everywhere. So even if Dustin then does a little handball off, that player then has loose men everywhere, and you see it happen time and time again. So that's where I actually thought Dusty did deserve it, and he kicked goals and he did all the other stuff too, and he's hard.
What you say is exactly what I thought. Is that he may not have been the dominant best player on the ground for possessions, or he didn't kick 8 goals.
He still had 28 or something, and kicked a couple of goals.
But he does you used the word chaos, and he's right. You're right. Whenever there's it's not necessarily a stoppage, but a piece of play. He always takes one opponent out, usually with the don't argue. And then there's 2 more that come to him. He'll bump into one, and even if he gets caught, by that stage he's already taken 2 or 3 opponents almost out of the contest, which leaves 2 Richmond players ready to run past.
Yeah.
That's why partly the reason I love him. If you're running an outside player at Richmond, you go, I'll just run past Dusty all day and I'll get 15 handballs.
It also stops the other midfield being able to do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
Because they're so busy trying to curtail his influence. So, I thought he was probably the best, but I can see why. I mean, but that's the great thing for Richmond fans. Either of them both of them deserved it. You probably could name 5 players that you could make strong arguments.
Well, Asprey was very good too.
Yeah. Well, there was a heap Griggs and all these other players who you would normally not.
Nankervis, he did a good job against Jacob. Probably Jacobs won the ruck, but
Jacobs was probably Adelaide's.
He was their best player.
I thought he was very good, and you just kept waiting for them to get going, but
they never did.
What
about Jake Lever, Melbourne's Jake Lever? How did he go?
I thought he was above average, but I didn't think he was a star. But
I reckon he took $100,000 off his contract, his Melbourne contract.
I don't know, once again, being a team sport, all their defenders were just constantly getting caught out of position because the midfield, their midfield kept turning. The amount of times the Crows midfield turned it over in the centre, kicked it into the centre corridor and turned it over. And so
it would come back.
And the defenders were just they were just scrambling the whole game. So you know what I mean? That's the thing about always coming back to. It's such a team sport. So when your whole team looks good, you all look amazing.
Yeah.
And when your whole team's bad, no one looks that good, you know? And their defence was just never able to set up or do anything really well.
And we watching at home, a number of times when you say that, when Adelaide took possession across half back, tried to go through the middle, turned it over, and then it came back, and we had guys at home yelling at him, saying, pick him up, pick up. I said, but hang on, they're playing the zone that they're supposed to go to after they take the ball out of that back 50, but they're not expecting, or the plan isn't for it to come back that quickly. They get caught out of position.
Well,
it's not like they didn't man up.
This was always, and there was a lot of truth in this, of Malthouse's view of always going down the boundary, because he always said the risk of turning over, if you turn it over in the corridor, it just came straight back into and your defence wasn't set up. That was his whole theory, Malthouse's. And a lot of that still holds. The game's changed slightly, but a lot of that is still true. Like, he used to say, don't go into the corridor unless you were 110% sure.
You got two or three blokes clear, and
you need someone who's just, because even if that person's alone and they drop the ball, then they and with Adelaide, they just regularly just went into the corridor, because the problem was every time they would try to go up the boundary to Tex, especially. He just couldn't take a mark to save himself, and it just kept coming back.
And his couple of goals were junk time anyway,
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. So moving on from the grand final, well done though to Richmond supporters once again. I'm sure none of you are listening to this because you're still celebrating, and why wouldn't you be?
Just before we finish, somebody, I don't know who it was, made a very good suggestion this morning. When the Richmond players get around to having their Mad Monday, which probably won't be till next week, surely one of them has to go as Adam Treloar, who went to Collingwood because they had a better list.
I know. What a great list manager he's been. There was a few of that. Well, I'm also looking at it and wonder how, like, Delidio and Vickery and others feel.
And there's a couple of players at Richmond who couldn't get a game. Lennon and Miles and Sam Lloyd, these guys.
Well, that's why they won a premiership.
Well, I'll be looking for new homes.
Yeah. Paddy Ryder yesterday, on grand final day, got arrested for assaulting police outside an Adelaide nightclub.
Right.
The police allege the confrontation occurred when officers attempted to break up a fight involving a group of men. The officers sustained minor injuries. Apparently, Ryder's younger brother and cousin were involved, and it seems like they're suggesting that Ryder sort of stepped in to try and help his brother and got caught up in it all.
It's always the retaliator, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it's always the second that goes in. He was charged with assaulting police and hindering police. Never hinder a policeman, I always say. He's going to released on bail, appear in the Adelaide Magistrates Court on November 15. Enrico Palazzo wrote in, positive that is not, I think that's from The Naked Gun, isn't it? The opera singer. Who at Essendon is to blame for Paddy Ryder's arrest? Spot on. Yeah. James Hurd's fault, this one.
They'll find a scapegoat somehow.
Actually, I think he's going to be appearing on bail at the Swiss High Court. David Lloyd wrote in, who showed more fight on Saturday, Paddy Ryder or the Adelaide Crows?
Oh, I think you've answered your own question there. I mean, the Crows, it was certainly no car park against the power.
Or the Ramsgate.
Yeah, the Ramsgate.
Oh, I know.
Ramsgate fracas of a few years back.
I think someone must have held Mark Rashudo back from running out. I think he would have wanted to run out on the ground at some point. Now, the NRL Grand Final, did you catch this last night?
I did. I watched the first half, and it was pretty clear that the Storm were going to win. So my wife finally said, can we turn this crap off now? Because the Storm are obviously going to win. But I watched all the pre-match.
Be honest, you wanted to watch The Bachelorette, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. But we'd take that. So I can watch it whenever I want. But yeah, I watched the whole thing, the pre-match. I watched Macklemore. He was pretty good. I'm not usually, we said last week, not a huge aficionado of your white man rap. But
so that wasn't Eminem.
No,
you're telling me.
It's him or Macklemore. There's only the two of them.
So it's confused.
Or is it Bliss and ESO from Adelaide?
I think, aren't they more dance music, electronic?
I'm just showing. I've got no idea. But he was pretty good. Your Macklemore. He trotted out his three hits and then finished off with the gay anthem.
I did enjoy that. This is how upside down the world is, where the NRL, one of the most progressive groups, and the coalition are fighting against them. Yeah. I never sort of thought that, if it was a right-left issue, that the NRL would end up being the far-flung right, far-flung left.
Oh, exactly. Well, half the reason I made a point of watching Macklemore is because I wasn't au fait with his Same Love song. I knew his first couple. But the fact that with John Howard and everybody, Tony Abbott, and they're all saying, oh, Macklemore, he shouldn't be allowed to do this song, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's what made me watch it.
Well, I love when Peter Dutton said that Macklemore, because he was doing a pro-marriage equality song, that they should have balance with another song. And I'm thinking, a few people said, oh, well, there's tons of love songs about heterosexual love.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think he meant that. I think he meant like that there should be a anti-marriage equality song done. And I'm thinking, I'm not aware that there are any of these songs. Like, is he suggesting someone needs to quickly write one to perform it at the NRL Grand Final?
Or poor old Percy Sledge couldn't get up and do When a Man Loves a Woman because he died 2 years ago. but yeah, old Macklemore, he was... And this is the other thing, and even just since last night, I've heard people on the radio and what have you go, this is why the AFL should have a night grand final, because you can do a lot more with a darkened stadium and some lasers than you can just in the bright sunshine. And it just...
I'm so against...
Musically, I'm a Killers guy rather than Macklemore.
But the Killers were great.
They were fantastic, but how good would it have been if it was dark and there was lasers going all around the MCG? And,
it's not that I'm a traditionalist, right? But a grand final, I love it in the daylight. I know that it's the best. I think it's better conditions. Night can often be dewy and it's harder. Like, I just think the footy is better. The product is better. As much as everyone it's and you know what? It works so well when you come to the grand final, or I don't think Richmond fans would have lasted till 7:10.
That's true.
Without having heart attacks, you know, like the ones I saw at 1:30. Well, not even just drunk, just so stressed. Like, you shouldn't have that much stress for that all day. But also, it's great because you have the morning breakfast and you have the lunches. That's all fun.
Then it's time to go to the game.
And then you go to the game, and then afterwards it's like celebration. It's a huge night out.
You either kick on or you. Yeah,
I actually just and
it does work. There's no question of it.
And the footy is the focus. And for 5 minutes you have a slightly better music production. Well,
that's true. That is probably the only reason to be the only
argument. And then and so you have all these players go, it'd be really great because you get to have the slightly better grand final time. I'm like, it's 5 minutes out of your day. Like, some of the best grand finals have had terrible music attached to them. Oh. No one goes back and goes, I wish that. Yeah.
Night,
And then I just think when you look at
Daryl Summers doing Waltzing Matilda, daytime or not time, ain't going to be a winner.
It's always funny. But the AFL polling itself, and the Herald Sun have done this and stuff, it's all like massively in favour. The fans are massively in favour of a day final, not a night. And I just think if they do change at the AFL, which I'm sure they are going to,
they will.
They're doing it for the TV. And I just think, God, can't the fans have anything? Like, do we get put last on everything? This isn't a 50-50. Like, we're massively, the fans want it to stay in the day. Keep it in the day.
I haven't been to the last two grand finals, but I've been to plenty of them over the journey.
Yeah.
And there is something great when you get into your seat and you look up and you see the blue sky above the
and this time of year in Melbourne, the weather starts to turn towards summer. It's nice. People are in good moods. I just much prefer it. That I like it the way it is, and it's not.
Well, that's a guarantee that's going to change.
No, I know it is. But the NRL Grand Final...
The game itself was,
the NRL Grand Final was... it was entertaining for a Melbourne supporter, but listening to the commentators...
Oh, Phil Gould.
This is how Sydney and Brisbane and West Coast and Adelaide Crows fans feel about the Melbourne commentary, which is very Melbourne-centric.
Yeah.
And but it is,
it is true.
This is how they feel. Melburnians get an insight into feeling like outsiders when they watch the NRL Grand Final, and they were like so disappointed in Melbourne's dominance, and were acting like. And Phil Gould, one of the most miserable bastards going around.
But it would have been worse if it wasn't the North Queensland. If it had been a Sydney team, imagine if it had been
even worse.
Yeah, much worse. But
they were just going like he's going. He's talking down all their tries, and he's like
they're overrated.
And it was just like he and Grant Thomas should just be locked together.
They should do a podcast together.
Oh, can you imagine those two?
A magical misery tour.
It's called Everything Is the Worst. Just Grant Thomas and him. Everything's a conspiracy theory. Everything's the worst.
He'll say, this is the worst thing ever. And then Phil Gould go,
No, mate.
this is worse
Yeah,
than that.
you don't even know what's worse.
No, we like that Monty Python sketch. We were so poor. We grew up in a shoebox. You know? we used to eat dust.
Yeah. I had to get up before I went to bed just to walk to work. Rodders wrote in, what social issue should the NRL pre-game entertainment solve next year?
I like that question. Well, what could it be?
I wouldn't mind someone having a go.
Could it be Phil Gould's mental health?
That's what they should both do. Like, global warming would be a good one to fix.
Yeah.
Like, if it's as easy as just doing it
fix that with a quick dance tune.
Yeah.
With some backup singers.
Surely there's been a good global warming anthem written by someone.
Look, what about if World War III does break out sometime in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Surely it could be stopped with a bit of, I don't know, bit of Barnsey.
The Black Eyed Peas doing Where Is the Love? Remember that solved all the problems?
Yeah.
Remember when that song solved the world's problems?
Of course it did.
So much so they released it again about 6 years later because they hadn't written any other good song. That was the laziest thing I've ever seen. It's like dusting off an old uni essay and handing it in. Other listeners' questions. Chris wrote in, watching the European Tour golf, the commentators stated that one of the golfers has a basketball background. Are they trolling us?
I didn't see that. I did hear, that was the other thing I did hear, though, during the grand final, something I didn't know.
Yeah.
Hugh Greenwood has a basketball background.
Oh, you're serious?
Yeah.
Thanks for them for telling us.
Yeah, now it's another one I can add to it.
I do love...
a golfer. Well, a basketball background does help in golf because it's a 360-degree game. You know?
The Barge Man, who often writes in, he's written, should the Australian public be trusted to vote on marriage equality when they can't even get Mark of the Year right?
I'm going to state right now, Barge Man, you win the T-shirt.
Oh, you're giving it to Barge Man?
Yeah, I reckon
I was going to give it to Rodders, but I reckon we'll give them
both of them.
We'll give them both because it's a big grand final
bonus
edition.
Yeah.
Because they were both good.
Well, when I saw Rodders, I thought that wins, but the Barge Man, that's pretty good. So, answer to the question: should the Australian public be trusted to vote on marriage equality when they can't even get Mark of the Year right?
Oh, I love the bitterness over the Jeremy Howard, Joe Watson one.
Oh,
the fact people care so much.
The Joe Danaher, yeah.
The Joe Danaher. Yeah. What did I say?
Yeah, Joe Watson. Watson.
That'd be amazing.
He's banned from winning anything.
That'd be more amazing if the public voted for that.
If Joe Watson wins Barista of the Year in New York, they'll take it off him somehow.
We'll appeal it.
It'll end up back in Gill's desk at some point.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a great AFL season. We stick around, of course, because we got the Ashes coming up. We got Spring Racing Carnivals right around the corner.
We might have to get Racetrack Ralphie back in to tell us about that.
We do have to do that. We got the BBL coming up again. We're looking forweek to that. Now that
NBL starting.
NBL's kicking off.
NFL in the States has just started.
That's started. That's up to round week 4 now. So it's just
NBA starting in a couple of weeks.
So I've got everything going. You know, all the lunacy of sport. And not to mention the real footy starting now.
Yes, which you know what you're going to say.
Trade week.
Trade period.
Draft.
As we said before, I would rather them have 23 weeks of trade period and then 4 weeks of finals.
Now that we've got what I call the silly season out of the way, it's
Let's
time
get to the serious stuff.
I've already got my Jake Lever T-shirt getting made up.
And Sydney supporters, get your Jack Watts badges ready.
Well, I've heard it's either Port Adelaide or
I can't
Sydney.
see Jack Watts being a good Brighton grammar boy fitting in at Port Adelaide.
Well, I love him going to Port Adelaide. I think it will finally be something that might cheer the Crows fans up a bit. The idea of him ending up at Port.
Well, so the trade period, we'll keep a pretty close eye on that in the next few weeks because in nothing else is so much crap talked as in trade week or trade period.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
Big thank you to everyone. You can become a subscriber, and big thanks to all our supporters, but you can become a supporter if you go onto the website titusoreilly.com and help us do all this. And a big thank you to everyone who's pre-ordered my book, a thoroughly unhelpful history of Australian sport that is out October 30. You can pre-order it at TitusO'Reilly.com, and you get a signed copy. You'll get it before it's in bookstores. So thank you to everyone who's already bought it.
I've had a look at that book.
I know, you've got an exclusive copy.
I might even finish it.
It's all the pictures.
Yeah.
We will see you on Thursday. Cheers.